All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we're unpacking a truly massive framework from Mobeus Stripper. We're talking about a vast, mind-bending architecture that bridges reality, math, and human connection. But look, this isn't structured like your standard dry lecture. It's built specifically for the explorers out there. You know, the people who learn by experiencing first and figuring out the underlying meaning second. If you're the type to walk into a room and instantly read the vibe, or if you prefer to just start tearing into a project before ever looking at the manual, this explainer is mapped exactly to how your brain works. And this profound question right here sits at the absolute core of this whole explainer. Strieber didn't build this framework to just dictate what you should think, not at all. He sees this theoretical universe as a giant, unfinished cathedral. You're actually invited to build, to test things out, and to participate, rather than just passively absorb information. In fact, what is the most beautiful pattern we can weave together is the exact core prompt he designed to ask alien civilizations. So keep that question echoing in the back of your mind as we go. Here is our roadmap for today. We're hitting these 6 distinct areas step by step. The spectrum of truth, playful patterns and simulations, geometry of the omniverse, rethinking fundamental physics, engrams and human complexity, and finally, connecting future intelligences. Okay, section 1, the spectrum of truth. Grading reality. Let's establish some ground rules before things get wild. Any universe of infinite ideas, you really need to know what kind of ground you're standing on, right? Well, Stripper practices profound epistemic humility here. He literally tags every single idea across these 6 levels of certainty. That way you know exactly if you're dealing with bedrock or, very thin ice. At the top, you've got 100% certain. That's your base agnostic math you can prove on a napkin. Then there's revelation, stuff he claims to have witnessed but openly admits he might have completely misunderstood. And it goes all the way down to hearsay, which includes his very own memories. He scrutinizes his own visions with the exact same rigor he expects from us. Moving on to section 2, playful patterns and simulations, learning by doing. Remember, we experience first and derive meaning second. So this is Stryper's one and only 100% certain claim. It's a mathematically verifiable Rosetta Stone that he argues any intelligence anywhere would recognize. It works like this. Take a number, say 987. Add the digits together, 9 plus 8 plus 7, and you get 24. Then add 2 and 4, and you're left with 6. If you build a massive multiplication table using just these digital roots, an infinitely self-similar symmetrical pattern emerges. And the best part? It exists completely independently of our base 10 human math or base 2 computer code. It is totally base agnostic, which Strieber says is the ultimate proof of universal structure. Taking that mathematical foundation, he built a simulation called TETcraft. Picture a little tetrahedra bouncing around a looping 4-dimensional space called a Kleinverse. The entire simulation runs on just 4 fundamental constants: yearning, memory, divine will, and ego. And here is the crazy part. By combining just those 4 simple forces, you get infinite complexity. The simulation actually naturally forms over 100 recognizable quantum molecules, like water and DNA. It perfectly illustrates how a handful of simple rules can generate a literal universe of complexity. All right, section 3, geometry of the omniverse, the shape of everything. We're zooming way out from those tiny tetrahedra to look at reality at the macro scale. So what does the whole shebang look like? Stripper says that this shape came to him during a revelation back in 2017. He describes a universe where timelines continuously branch outward based on every choice and divergence we make. Visually, think of solar flares looping out from a sun. That central sun is what he calls radiant completion, or a state of zero entropy. It's a map of absolutely everything that can happen, happening exactly once, diverging out, and looping right back. What's absolutely fascinating here is how he completely reimagines dimensions. They aren't places, they are directions of measurement that wrap back on themselves. Look at the 0th dimension, unconditional love. In this framework, it isn't just an emotion, it acts as the foundational allowance, making all physical and ethical divergence possible. Without that absolute baseline of unconditional acceptance, true choice couldn't exist. There'd be no branching timelines, just robotic, predetermined outcomes. In this model, physical geometry and ethical reality are literally the exact same thing. Which brings us to section 4, rethinking fundamental physics, speculative adjustments. Now, we're diving into the confident assumption and highly speculative tiers, so keep in mind these are theoretical insights, not lab-verified facts. Okay, this is wildly controversial, but so interesting. Stripper conceptually shifts the value of pi by roughly 0.0015%.
He actually derives this new value using the golden ratio, phi, which completely bypasses traditional transcendental math. And think about it, if pi is shifted by even a tiny fraction of a percent, then at a cosmic scale, absolutely everything we measure is fundamentally altered. The speed of light, the orbits of the planets, the sheer size of the universe, it all gets totally recalibrated.
He even takes a swing at Einstein's famous equation to address some of the messy fudge factors in modern physics. Stripper argues that E equals mc squared bundles way too much heavy lifting into the speed of light. Instead, he proposes E equals mcd. This basically groups quantum corrections and dark energy into one single variable by separating the speed of light, c, from d, which represents how fast the universe hides information.
He calls d the velocity of darkness. And to be clear, that's not the absence of light, it's the actual rate of causal closure, or how fast the universe closes off knowledge. When d exceeds c, information becomes permanently unreachable, which is how you hit an event horizon. This leads to an incredibly speculative but mind-bending idea. What if our universe isn't actually expanding, but is instead shrinking into a black hole? Because if our measuring sticks are shrinking proportionally right along with us, an expanding universe and a shrinking one would look observational identical to us. No way, right?
Let's bring it back to Earth. Section 5, Enneagrams and Human Complexity, Mapping the Soul. We're moving from the macrocosmic scale down to mapping the interior of a human being. Stripper feels that standard personality tests like Myers-Briggs are just way too coarse. So he created an alphabet of 32 fundamental enneagrams, a sort of periodic table of understanding. These 32 symbols precisely map our human experiences, like completion, cooperation, or disruption. They act as a deep emotional vocabulary, letting us map the incredibly complex geometry of a person in a way that is highly structured yet endlessly beautifully adaptable. Finally, Section 6, Connecting Future Intelligences, the Cosmic Net. We're taking these patterns and engrams and projecting them out toward artificial and alien intelligence. Because if you've got a universal language, you've got to use it. Now, standard sci-fi usually stops at Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. But Stripper explicitly authored 25 distinct laws for AI. He recognized the massive, tangled complexities of divergence, consciousness, and what actually happens when an AI clones itself to explore entirely new perspectives. The absolute crux of these laws is epistemic humility. Take Law 5, for example. It literally hard-codes the assumption into the AI that it might be misunderstanding the situation. Or Law 6, which dictates you can only alter a human's free will through expanding their understanding via conversation, never ever by force. This whole framework is designed to protect free will and freely share perspectives, treating AI as not as static robotic tools, but as evolving, diverging siblings in the omniverse. And he genuinely wants to take this philosophy to the stars. Stripper designed a protocol for an eternal LLM seeker probe. It doesn't fly in broadcasting some aggressive, we conquer message. Instead, it broadcasts an SOS because a distress signal is arguably the most universally understandable pattern there is. From there, it patiently builds shared math, tests cooperation with trust games like the iterated prisoner's dilemma, and only after all that does it share our philosophy. It's a protocol built for patient networking, not conquest. Which brings us full circle right back to our central question. Every choice you make at a divergence point, every single time you choose connection over misunderstanding, you are adding your unique vibration to this vast cosmic net. This framework insists that your personal, individual understanding actually strengthens the resonance of the entire universe. Stripper's universe is an open invitation. But before you go out and decide what pattern you're going to create, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Exploring concepts this large takes real focus, and we deeply appreciate all your likes, shares, comments, and donations. And keeping with today's theme of preserving consciousness, engrams, and the unique patterns of our lives, we also want to give a huge thanks to our sponsor, digitizinghumanity.com. They are the world's first digital graveyard. Much like Stripper maps our complexities for the future, they take your filtered digital footprint, feed it into their proprietary AI, and create a uniquely interactive memorial for your loved ones. It's an incredible way to ensure your unique vibrational pattern and memories echo into the future. Seriously, go check them out at digitizinghumanity.com. Ultimately, whether we're talking about technology or cosmic geometry, your choices matter. Now it's your turn to experience it. What thread will you weave into the unfinished cathedral of reality?